we start? Where does one start when you're about to talk about demonic influence and demonic oppression? Well, we don't talk about this a lot on the podcast. We've touched on it, but topics of this nature have been separate and shared more on the Becoming YouTube Live series, which I've had a hiatus, and it's coming back refreshed and revived. There's new breath of life being put into it. So this, I really wanted to keep separate topics of this nature. I haven't wanted to put on the podcast too much. But at the same time, I've resisted and it's been put on my heart to share about it because it's a disservice to not share the truth of what's actually going on behind the scenes. Our reality is spiritual. So we could say, oh, it's a 3D reality. It's all physical. No, our world that we're living in is spiritual. Everything is spiritual. And yes, we have God, and yes, we have the demonic kingdom as well. And can I just say, this is not to put fear out there. This is not fear mongering. This is once again saying it's a disservice to not share the truth of what is really going on. From a very young age, I've been connected into the spiritual realms. I've seen and sensed and felt a lot of things. And, when I was younger, I didn't necessarily understand what it all was. There were some terrifying moments. I'm not gonna candy coat it. There were some real terrifying encounters that I've had, and you don't necessarily have words for it, and then you find the words, and then the adults in your world don't necessarily understand it, or it's not real, but it's very real. And there's so much that's been coming back to me in terms of memories since having my personal encounter with Jesus in 2023. And that turned my world upside down. To be quite honest, that completely has changed everything in my world, in me, the way I look at things, the way I view things, what I'm doing now as a profession, where I'm being guided. Like, just Jesus flipped the table on my life. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. However, at the same time, so many memories have been flooding back. Like there's a whole other part of my life where I was very connected to Jesus and aware of God and the demonic realms. I've talked about this briefly. I'm not even sure where I shared this, but I know I've shared this before. When I was in junior high, my mom put me in a horse riding camp, but it was a Bible camp at Birch Bay Ranch, Alberta, outside of Sherwood Park. But yeah, I loved horses. And so, she did some volunteer work to really help. We didn't have funds to have a horse. That's not my upbringing. I didn't come from money or wealth. So yeah, I really appreciate my mom, single mom, working hard and volunteering to help get me in this camp. And it was a Bible camp. And that is where I really became aware of demons. I don't have any other way to say it because that's the first time that I truly encountered things of that nature, where I saw them in people and understood that's what it was. I followed a deliverance ministry, which is huge now. This was like 25 years ago. Deliverance ministry was a thing. It was there. We could say exorcisms. Deliverance ministry is where you're freeing people. It's pretty much exorcisms though. So I went down rabbit holes, loved Bob Larson. Oh my gosh, I listened to his radio show. I saw him live a couple times, watched all his YouTubes. He's called The Real Exorcist on social media. He paved the way for so much of the deliverance ministry that's going on today. if you see it, you might feel like it's a little kitschy because he's got his cross and like his priest outfit. But some of the things that I witnessed firsthand through being at his deliverance ministry events, you can't make that up. Like this stuff is very, very real. And so I'm even sharing this that, and they were not actors. Okay, I just need to stress this because there's going to be the folks that might look that up and it's you think it's fake. They had to be hired as an actor. No, this is not spiritual psychosis. This is a spiritual battle. It's a spiritual battle. It's spiritual warfare. We have the light of God in us. We all have the ability to be connected into God, source divine. Okay? And these beings don't like that. These beings want to keep us disconnected from that. They will oppress. They will ruin your life. I don't have the proper, I don't have the proper biblical quotes. I can't, read off scripture to you, but the devil came to seek, kill, and destroy. Like those are some passages I'm like, I don't have my scripture, but these are some teachings. The devil came to seek, kill, and destroy. And that's a mission and a mandate. So these oppressive energies, and I'm calling them demonic influences, their mission is to destroy humanity. We could say their mission is to destroy your life, but their mission is to destroy humanity. And we can see it playing out in our worlds. So I was giving a little bit of that background information because I've known about this my whole life. And something that I've found ironic is that even though I knew about it, and even though I've had firsthand experiences with it, even though I know that I've had me, yeah, your girl hijacked. I know that I've had demonic oppression and influence. It's like you forget. But through that encounter with Jesus in 2023, like he came to me clear as day that changed everything in my world. And I'm so grateful. I have to say that. But it's like I didn't remember any of that stuff. So then after that encounter, and I started to be like, oh, wait a second. This Jesus guy is like different than what I've been used to connecting to in my 10 plus years. Well, more than that, I'm thinking professionally of being a healer and a psychic and working with the metaphysical and esoteric arts. This feels a little different. So I was curious and exploring and wanting to get to know more of who Jesus was. And then I rediscovered deliverance ministry because I forgot about all of that. It's like that was a completely different chunk of my life that almost got like clean slated. Like the memory was erased of that whole period of my life. And I must admit, because there was a lot of substance abuse throughout my life, there's a lot of chunks of time missing in my world. And I know I'm not alone. I see you. You got the missing chunks of time and awareness and that whole part. Like I studied demonology. I was so fascinated. That whole part of my life was just like Men in Black, clean slated, didn't exist anymore. And it came back from meeting Jesus. So then I started looking up Bob Larson again. I'm like, oh my gosh, Bob Larson. What's he up to? And then that opened up this other wave of like the other deliverance ministers that do it more on like a global scale in front of people. And there's mixed reviews on if this is really real or can it's real. It's real, but I know there's so many times where there's been charlatans, or just like there's so much deception in our world. It could be very easy to not think this stuff is real. But if we're living in a spiritual world, and if it is essentially like this ongoing battle, like I don't even know how to stress the time. It's almost like from the beginning of time. It's not from the beginning of time, but the beginning of time, there's been this battle. Why do we have all of these stories throughout time of the battle of good and evil, light and dark? And then there's all of these ways that you could view it of there is no good, there is no evil, just having like that indifference and just everything is part of God and everything is part of creation. Yeah, but there are oppressive forces and there are demonic forces that want to destroy humanity, and they will destroy humanity one soul at a time. And perhaps, what has been a detriment, I would say, for me personally, because I've been aware of this stuff, I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of it. To hear stories like this, it doesn't faze me because I know it's real. To hear stories like this, I'm like, yeah, absolutely, this is real. How do we fight it? God. Yeah, God. God's how we fight it. And I laugh, like what I laugh because for some people this will create fear. And that's not the intention. This is about being aware that it's there. Even being aware where you could have influences, because sometimes this demonic influence can come in through your thoughts. It's not even you, it's not your thoughts. You might even think, where did that come from? Taking you in a downward spiral. More often than not, that's not you. I see these things on people. It's hard. I know I'm safe and I'm protected, but I don't go out a lot. And it can be hard to be in public spaces because I just see things latched onto people. Real talk. I wouldn't want to take it away, even though there's been times where I haven't wanted to see, I haven't wanted to feel. I'd rather know than not know. You know what I'm saying? And the interesting thing about this, where I laugh, it's like I'm not even afraid. I know this stuff's real. And I know that when we are connected to God, we are more powerful. Hands down. The battle's over. We are more powerful, but we need to be connected to God. I started dating someone, God, this was years ago, and I flat out knew that they had demonic attachments. Right before we started dating. And I didn't run. I didn't run. I was like, oh, I can't actually clear this. I got to get a homegirl to help sort you out before we actually date because I can't be the one to do it. But I willingly entered into a relationship with someone knowing that they had demonic attachments. And later they had shared stories with me after we were dating where they had manifested demonic manifestation and they were slithering on the floor and like hissing and speaking in completely different language. And their girlfriend at the time booked it. She left all of her stuff. She took the pet cat and booked it, and he never saw them again. And you know what? I did see that. I actually did see that at one point in the relationship. I wasn't scared. I was just like, okay, we gotta pray. We gotta pray now. And I'm laughing about it. It's not funny. It's not funny, but it's just at the same time, it's like, what? But you operate differently when you know what the game is, when you know what's around. And it helps to be equipped to know what the game is and to know what's around. We don't have to be afraid of these things. It's being aware that it's real. So looking at your life, like, so yes, things could crumble and fall apart. They could fall and crumble apart, whether there's demonic influence or oppression or not. Like I said, Jesus flipped the table on my life. Everything flipped upside down. Oh my gosh. And it's like we're in 2026. This happened in July of 2023. It is January of 2026. And I finally feel like I've got some stable footing beneath me. I know through all of the dismantling and dissolution of identities and what does this all mean? But like being more aware of the ways in which God is very active in life and the way the demonic realms are very active in life and just like coming to terms with that, reckoning with that. 2026 is where I just feel more stable from all of the whirlwind that awakening was. So yeah, your world can crumble and fall apart, and it can be definitely God is there. God is there with you, and your world can be crumbling and falling apart, and like it's demonic influence as well. I always think of the book of Job, and the devil had made a deal with God, saying, "I bet I can get this guy to turn against you." And Job was a faithful servant of God. Okay, so the devil was saying, "I bet I can get this guy to turn against you." And God said, "Nope, I bet you can't. Go have fun with him." And so many things were taken away from Job, but he never cursed God. He never turned his back on God. He still loved God and was loyal to God. And even his friends said, "You should curse God." And then his friends were saying, "God has taken his hand of favor off you. You did something," pointing and blaming Job for all of the hardships that he had going on in his life. And he still loved God. Sometimes, people can say, "Oh, the devil's coming to collect everything that he gave you," or "the dark forces are coming to collect everything that he gave you." That's not true either. It could be, but there's so many different stories that can be spun. So that story of Job, a perfect example, everything got taken away. Like God literally said, "I'm going to remove my protection from this guy. You do your worst, and I tell you, he still will love me," and he did. But that was an aside. That was an aside, but maybe not. Maybe it's for whoever's hearing this, but the way we can talk about all of these influences, but how do we work with them? Because what good, it's good to know. Okay, I was going to say, what good is it to know? Awareness is everything. To know that these things can hijack your thoughts. They can hijack like the way that you behave. I don't believe addiction is just addiction. You can have these strongholds coming down through the bloodline. You can open up doors to these demonic influences where they take over you. Alcohol, like substances, is such a gateway to that. We can open doors, right? Where you're not necessarily of sound mind or clear, and they're like, we could say they're parasites. They're just going to use any opportunity that they can get to get a piece of you, It's just they are parasitic. They're very parasitic. And so how do we work with that though? You don't want to be opening doors to them. You want to be of sound body and mind, and God. Having a connection and a relationship with God can help combat these because we can't do it alone. That's a misconception of, "Oh, I can battle these demons on my own." Yeah, you gotta battle your demons, but you're gonna get taken down if you are going against them by yourself. Because who are you as a human? Really? Come on. So you're gonna be sliced and diced and taken down and then boot stomped if you're trying to battle these demons on your own. Even in AA programs, they say higher power. they can't use God because it triggers a lot of people. But in the AA, they literally tell you in that program, you cannot beat your addiction by yourself. You need a higher power. And to keep it open and comfortable for many different backgrounds, they just say higher power. And sometimes they use God. It's kind of confusing that they use God and higher power, but you're not going to battle with these on your own. And you do need God, source, divine, to help with that. So to combat these, like preventative, we don't want to be opening doors, but understanding, once again, there's generational ties that can have that can give them access through the bloodline, right? So really addressing what some of that is. You might see these patterns, and alcohol just seems to be coming up really strong for me right now as an example, but you might see like this pattern of alcoholism going through a family. It's like the great grab a drink, the dad drank, the son drank, on and on and on and on. But it's like it's toxic and destructive within the family system. So that's a doorway that is given entryway through the bloodline, through the family. And there's so many different examples I could use of that, but that seems to be one that's coming forward. And so when you become aware that that could be a stronghold for demonic oppression, it's like, how do you shift that within yourself with God to help clear that for you? And then you can clear it within the bloodline. Because there's so often where you might come into your family and you might say, I'm not going to ever do that. I'm going to be different. And then you're literally changing the future of the generations. And maybe they couldn't, maybe they didn't know it was a thing, maybe they didn't know how, but then it's you and you come in and you're like, I'm going to change this for myself and for my life and to do something different. And then you change that. So it's the same with extracting the demonic oppression or influences that could be brought down through the bloodline. But we got to pray. We need to ask God for help to do that. And it might not happen overnight. It could take work, but we can't do it alone. It's just, I laugh so much because it's like, oh my goodness, who do we think we are that we can go, like, we can battle all of this on our own? First of all, we're not alone, and you're going to get taken out. If you keep trying to do it on your own, you're going to get taken out. There's not weakness in asking for help. One thing that I've noticed and witnessed from personal experience is, and this is kind of interesting. Remember how I was saying like memories came flooding back after meeting Jesus? But I remember whenever I was scared, like even being in the new age and practicing esoteric arts and psychic artistry and stuff like that, there would be cases where I would be afraid and I would call on Jesus and I didn't even know where it came from. Like there's one incident, trigger warning, where I had a very dark energy come, and because there's like the succubus and incubus spirits. So I had one of those energies come and I screamed for Jesus. I was like, Jesus, and he wasn't coming. He wasn't coming. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're the only one I know to call in this moment to help. And it was terrifying that he didn't come, but he came. He did come and then blasted that energy out. So it's just interesting, like doing house clearings and things. I would use Jesus, God, like it's just fascinating because it was the furthest thing from my work because there's so many triggers with the word Jesus because of religion and what's been happening with that. And it's sad. It's actually quite sad that, like, what a perfect design. What a perfect design for darkness and demonic influence to completely infiltrate the way people will view God and Jesus. Like, just twist things and get them, create all of that religious trauma so they don't want anything to do with Jesus, and then they don't think that demons are real, or whatever that is. So I've found that, yeah, in moments of being fearful and like, and not knowing who else to call or to turn to, not even a thought, like I haven't even thought about it. That's just who's popped in my mind, which I always found fascinating and has worked for me. And I know it's worked for other people, but I can only really speak on what I've found to be impactful for me. And maybe for you, you can try. Things might get activated more in your life if there are areas of oppression. It might happen because they don't want to lose that part of you that they have. They don't want to lose a soul that they have access to. But God wins always. And we are in this spiritual battle, but the battle's already won. Like that's another thing. Things seem to be getting more murky and intense in our earth, and just like the clutches trying to drag humanity down. It's already been won. The end of the story is already written, and it just feels like it's getting more intense because they're just trying with all their might to change that outcome. But the outcome is already written. The oppressive parasitic forces cannot win. And I'm going to leave it at that. The oppressive parasitic forces cannot win because the battle has been fought, the battle has been won. So taking a moment to put the hands on the chest and the hearts and to take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth, and calling in Yeshua, Jesus Christ, the light of God, that source of all of creation, to be with you, to help, to free you from any demonic oppression or influence within your life, within the body, within the mind, within the heart. May all of these entities or energies that are not here to be in your greatest and highest best, asking God to clear the way for you to be in your purest form, to be in your truth, to be that extension and expression of the light of God in the world. Taking a deep breath in and out. And we will now leave it at that. Like I said, I've really tried to keep topics like this separate from Heart Path podcast, but I've been taking a hiatus from the Becoming series. And yeah, I can't not share the truth. To know and not share is a disservice. Lots of love.